Hey, Michael, how you doing?
Very well. It's good to be here with you, Josiah.
Yeah, I'm excited to have this conversation. I've known you for a few years, and you kind of hinted about your story. And once you told me a little bit more about it, I wanted to go deep into your life history. And so, thanks for this opportunity. We're here in beautiful Seattle with the Space Needle. It's a nice, cool but sunny day.
Couldn't ask for better.
And so, let's get right into it.
Let's get into it.
Let's talk about Michael earlyhood. So one through 20.
Well, an interesting story. So, 1970, start there. Well, just after 1970, we moved up here from St. Louis, Missouri in a Dodge van with another family, or basically nothing.
Yeah.
And
How old were you at that time?
I was less than a year.
Okay.
Less than a year.
You remember that?
Not exactly, but the prelude of the story is that my parents picked a place up here based on a small fisheries program that my dad wanted to get into. And so that's what brought him up 2,000 miles away from anybody and everybody that
So they didn't know anyone?
didn't know anybody but the family they came up with. Went to that and slowly but surely, climbed the American ladder.
Mm-hmm.
So, coming from basically nothing to a solid middle class family by the time I was in my teens.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up was a challenge of.
Did you live here in Seattle
We
or
lived
in the suburb?
well, we moved up here. I believe we moved to Edmonds.
Okay.
That's where we started. Then kind of Linwood area.
Mm-hmm.
Then we moved to Bothell, and then we finished in Issaquah.
Okay.
That's where they still live today, which is it's nice. Issaquah's a great town.
Mm-hmm.
But through that was a steady progression of just kind of getting, better and better. They did real good. But they were young. My parents were in their teens and 20s when we moved up here.
Mm-hmm.
So they went through a lot of struggles. And
How many kids did they have?
just myself and my sister.
You were a handful, it sounds like.
Yeah, probably more so. And so anyways, all right. So I guess once we got to Bothell, that was my teenage years.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's when some would say things that, the 80s are an interesting time for kids.
Were you into sports at all?
Yes.
Okay, you did sports?
Did sports, soccer, football, baseball, all that. But the 80s for kids in general, we were a true latchkey, which means that you got the keys to the house, you went to school, and then you came back sometime in the evening and you either made dinner or you came home for dinner, and that was your day. Nobody was there to kind of keep on it. If you had sports, you stayed after school. When you did your sports, they'd come pick you up and you go home and finish out your day. So that was, so we had a lot of free time. And in that free time, as kids today, I don't think they really understand what the glorious amount of free time, the freedom that you really have.
Without cell phones and all that.
Without cell phones, without any communication, you basically had telephone in the neighborhood. Hey, is my son there? Is my son there? And so when we grew up, there was a swath of vacant land. So we had 100 acres across the street. We had about another 50 acres on the other side. They were building like crazy at that time. So all these new houses and things were going in. And as kids, we just ravaged it. And we'd go and steal all the plywood, we'd steal all the building supplies and build all these forts. So
it sounds like no matter what generation, kids always do dumb stuff.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it was dumb. I mean, I don't think of it as dumb at the time. You think it was innovative.
Yeah.
You're taking advantage of a resource. They got a pile of wood and you're like, oh, I'd like to build a fort. And you go out there and build. It's not like you're building a house or anything. You get like 4 or 5 sheets of plywood and a couple 2x4s and things like that. You're bringing a dad's hammer and get some nails, and pretty soon you got a little roof to go hang out at where nobody knows where you are. They can't find you. They can't find you for days.
Yeah.
That was kind of cool. And then from that, our generation, we wasn't uncommon for us to do 15, 20 miles on our little BMX bikes a day, just riding around the neighborhoods and getting into trouble. You know? So it's no wonder that, drugs and alcohol came early. Parents had unlined liquor cabinets. Schools were full of, marijuana and cigarettes from an early age. So it was very easy to accessibility at that time. I don't know what it's like today, but this whole time that I've had my daughter, I feel kind of cheated because I've had no drama to have to deal with whatsoever. I expected to be repaid tenfold for all the drama that I gave as a kid. So it's been pretty easy. So, anyways, from an early age, you kind of saw that lifestyle. You saw the kids that were.
No, what percentage of kids do you think were into just the drugs and alcohol? Was it a majority or less than half?
See, when I was in school, there were still smoking sections in high school.
Really?
Yeah.
For the teachers?
No, for the kids.
For the kids?
For the kids.
They were like, kids.
You could go smoke over across the street from the high school.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So to give you an idea how many people were involved, yes.
So is smoking legal if you're under 18 back then?
I don't know if it was legal or if it was just
accepted. Yeah.
I don't think it's ever been legal, but I don't think I think there was just too many people that smoked that they didn't know what to do with it. Unlike today where they're like, no, well, you can't do it.
Yeah.
So even though kids still do it, my daughter tells me that they're still,
but there's enough evidence now that shows it's harmful.
There's enough evidence back then too, but again, it was still coming out of that baby boom generation and that earlier generation where everybody smoked even in the hospital rooms,
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I remember my first airplane flight, so we were smoking on the airplanes.
Yeah.
So it was a different time. And so, as kids, we were into chewing tobacco, smoking cigarettes. We'd have alcohol over there in our little forks and stuff of that nature. It's not like we were drinking every day or something, but we'd sneak out at night sometimes and trying to be adults at, an early age, 13, 14, 15, up until, really became early adults and we started to get our license. And then it was.
Did your parents, were they aware of what you were up to? Did they know? Did they care? Did they try to prevent it?
That's an interesting question. Yes, no, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, of course, when the signs were there, yes. They tried to be apart, but I don't know if you know this or not, but kids are good liars. We won't admit anything. We're not trying to, oh no, it's no. It's not what you think. No, it's his. Everything but accept responsibility as a kid. And so if you can spend it, you can deflect it. Like I said, there wasn't a lot of time being spent, so we weren't spending it every day. If my daughter was involved with drugs, I would know.
Yeah.
Okay, because I spend enough time. Right, the signs are there. I know what the signs are. My parents didn't do drugs; they barely drank, and so they don't really know what they were looking at. Recognizing I would say it would be hard to spot unless you have experience recognizing that. But
yeah,
okay. That's from the time my sister did later, but I think at 10 years old, I had a little friend that, we used to hang out all the time and we were sneaking out of the house and just going to riding our bikes in the middle of the night just for, fun at 10, 11 years old. We were 15,
yeah, my kids aren't doing that.
Yeah, the kids, they just aren't doing that today. We did that until I think we got caught. We finally got caught sometime around 14. My parents finally checked in on us one night, and that was that. It was over. But, we had a pretty good long run. And yeah, so that was my youth in a kind of a nutshell of this.
So when you got into your late teens, was there like let's say junior, senior high school?
Okay, so my junior year, we moved to Issaquah. So that's when we moved. So things got, things were kind of, so all this stuff in Bothell kind of came to a head. There's some drama with the school. I first year in high school was kind of a fuck up, and then the next year, by the end of that year, by the end of that first year, I got myself together, and I just had low self esteem going in. By the end, I realized that I just wasn't hanging out with the right people. So I redid all of my friendships and things of that nature. Made some good, solid friends that I still talk to there today. And when we moved, it made it real easy to make a transition into Issaquah High. And I was like, yeah, okay, we're gonna come in here. We're gonna do things differently. We're not gonna be in the same thing. And I was good with it, but I don't know. There's always been a fascination with. I guess it was always a fascination with the drug and the drug realm of life.
I thought that I just came into my mind. Some people like to color within the lines.
Yes.
They're more susceptible to that, and other people just don't.
Well, say I was a mix of both. I knew how to walk within the lines, but I stayed outside of them at the same time.
Yeah.
So even at this new school, after about a year being in there, so long, my senior year, I was pretty rooted, and the social groups in Issaquah were way more tight than they were in Bothell.
Was it also, now when people think of Issaquah, it's like a richer neighborhood? Was that?
Yeah, but it was a poor neighborhood back. I mean, it wasn't poor, it was a country neighborhood.
Yeah.
All right. And the statistics in the school weren't that great. The ratings weren't that great. It was kind of an outlier, not like it is today. So we got there, they were going through growing pains. They had just started building the plateau. They just started putting stoplights in the city, things of that nature. It was, but the people there, I mean, like,
Microsoft wasn't a thing yet.
not even a thing.
Yeah.
No.
That really helped develop that area.
Yeah. So like you have good college friends. Issaquah High from that period is like a group of college resources. I mean, I still have probably 20 people on speed dial from that time. It's good.
So let's talk about senior year. What was your did you have dreams, aspirations to do something, or were you kind of like, I don't know what the future's going to be like?
Wasn't sure, but at that point in time, so during that time, so Issaquah again was in the country, so there was a lot of kind of. I was trying to figure out how to phrase this for you so you could understand that in that time period of the 80s and things, everybody wanted to be that either they all wanted to be that antagonist of that guy, the one that had the drugs, the power. They had they're the good time guy. So it was very easy. One of my good friends' dad, he was growing a massive weed operation in his basement, and he was distributing it to us, and we were distributing it.
So he was the kingpin, and you were the.
He was a kingpin, yeah. He was one of them out in that area. So we had access to lots of pot at that time.
At the time, did you think that was wrong?
No.
Or moral?
No, we didn't think it was wrong.
It was illegal though, right?
Yeah, it was illegal.
For you though, it was just like whatever. It's
like whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't care.
Did you consume the product yourself?
Plenty of it.
Okay.
Plenty of it. And I help people grow it and build houses and things of that nature for years after that.
Do you think it was good that they legalized marijuana in the state?
So I don't smoke pot anymore, and I don't like it really. I attribute it to a lot of dysfunction in my life.
Yeah, that's what I figure.
But at the same time, I don't know if I see it any more wrong than people going out and drinking.
Yeah.
At the same time, I think you have less violent tendencies. I think the biggest problem with pot is that it makes you unmotivated and it takes away from your ability to really fulfill your.
If you're already unmotivated, you add that to your life, and it's not really.
Well, in hindsight, I find that it was a big reason why I didn't complete a lot of things that I should have completed. back in those days. I think I had a lot more ADHD than I thought. So it was kind of starting but couldn't finish. The remedy was take double hits.
All right. So senior year, you're graduating. What's your thought process? Did you know you wanted to go to college?
I did go to college.
Okay.
Made it till I was about 20, 21.
So you did a couple of years of college?
Yeah, met this
Were you
guy,
working?
met this guy that did mortgages. And the funny thing is that I met him because I was selling.
He was one of your.
Well, that was my whole business plan. So when I was selling the dope, my business plan was I catered to older people, and the reason I catered to older people was so that I could have be influenced by an older generation. So people that were 5-10 years older than me, and I was good. I was articulate, and I didn't look like a stoner. I had short hair, dressed good, and had good mannerisms and things of that nature. So my whole focus was to cater to people that were in the professional world, and that's where I really excelled.
You found your niche.
Yeah, it was a niche, and it worked out very
You
well.
had the entrepreneurial spirit without even.
And so I met this guy that he did loans. He did A or B and C papers. So he was telling me about it, and I was fascinated. I'm like, because I like the money game. I was like, how that is. I always wanted to be in my major was finance and marketing finance. So I wanted to be in some sort of business, marketing, finance. That was kind of
When you were young, did you have dreams to become a millionaire?
the dreams to become a millionaire. Well, I think I always wanted to be a millionaire. Yeah, of course. I don't think it.
Not everyone always has that dream. That's why I ask people.
I wanted to be comfortable. I wanted to be able to afford the things that I wanted to afford. I didn't have to struggle. Life has been a struggle about me. It definitely didn't work out that way. But yeah, and so I saw the mortgage as a ticket to that. Yes,
Okay.
of course.
All right. So you meet this guy. I'm going to check something real quick. You meet this guy. Go ahead. Continue.
Well, he saw the potential, and he liked the fact that I was young and articulate, and he was just split up from a partnership, and so together we went and formed a company.
So how old was this guy?
Let's see, I was 22. I think he was about 30.
Okay.
So relatively young. He come out he worked for Pacific Coast Investments to its big hard money company.
Right. So define what hard money means.
Hard money is like a non-usurious loans for real estate that you had to. You can get it for business purposes, not for like.
Well, hard money. What's the opposite of hard money?
Well, conventional financing, the kind of financing that you would get as an individual going into a bank.
So hard money doesn't necessarily mean bad or unscrupulous.
No, it just means that it's for a specific purpose.
And the interest rates are probably higher.
Yeah, so the interest rates at that time were
just in general
15% and 10 points for the loan. So, but then it was all an investment. I mean, so they say it was hard money, but it really wasn't exactly hard money because the company was structured really cool. So they had a bunch of people that invested into the company, and then those people used that money into real estate very secure.
So someone else people would put money into this company so that my company could then
lend the money back out. And so that's where he got his start. So he had this cool.
Was it his company?
No. This was we'll get to that story because it ended up being a bust in the end too. I went to jail. So, and I was enamored by it because they're down there and like on the 10th floor of the Norton building downtown. Good view of stuff, the old office. We'd go down there and we're always rolling down there and picking up deals because they were always trying to get out of all these properties that they'd lend money on. And like, hey, can you get us out of this? Can you get us out of that? So we were doing all of these refinances where people had gotten in, they wanted to get out, their term was due. These are all 5-year notes or 10-year notes. Yeah, they had to get refinanced out. So,
and they weren't able to get loans conventionally.
No, they get a non-conforming loan, yeah, it's in VRC paper. So this is back when you had people like Wells Fargo, who was the king of the junk bond paper, or no, not Wells, Washington Mutual. It was the king of the.
I don't think are they still around? Yeah, they got bought out by.
They got bought out. They got blown out when they invested in all that paper. You had people like Avco Finance. So like Avco Finance was another one where this lady that we worked with, she created the first zero down program in the area. So before they did zero downs in the 90s, like the late 90s, when they did all those ninja loans, we were doing them with seller carrybacks, and yeah, they were sketchy. And they're like 5 points minimum, and you could only get 80%, but the seller could carry a 20% carryback.
Mm-hmm.
And the real estate market then wasn't anything like it is today. It was a lot, and so people are struggling to kind of get the property sold. We're like, well, we can do it. Carry this back. And they're like, okay. Well, this lady did so much business here in Washington that she did more than like 2 or 3 other regions combined. And they're like, oh. So pretty soon people took notice, and that's when they started offering these back end 20% loans or 10% loans on the back end. And that's when that whole frenzy of zero down, the first wave of zero down financing came around. It was pretty interesting to watch that. There was a crash though somewhere in there, and it went away. And then by the next phase in 2000, when people were really doing the hirings, it slowly came back.
Right.
Yeah. I guess she went to jail. So she ended up making a bunch of loans to herself. She ended up going to jail. The program went away. They started realizing they were losing a bunch of money. They started putting this program back on the table.
So it seems like it wasn't a very regulated industry.
No regulations.
So that's how people get into. It may start off as well-intentioned, possibly, but it can lead to other
I
things.
don't think anybody's really well-intentioned in the money business.
Interesting.
I don't think that anybody has anybody's intentions other than themselves, right? I mean, yes, they want to get you your loan, but they only want to get you your loan because they want to get paid. And back then, you were getting between 3 to 5%, sometimes more, on each loan. So it was like making a real estate commission on a loan commission.
Right.
And so there was a lot of push to do whatever it took to get those loans done. Not to mention you got absurd amount in the back end as well. You could get 3 to 5 points in the front. You could still get 2 to 3 points in the back. I mean, it was, very unregulated, and people were at your mercy. If they weren't going to Bank of America or someplace like that, they were pretty much at your mercy because it was whoever could get the deal done at that time. And if you had poor credit or you had things, and we had to, we'd be making phone calls to IRS or to collection companies or whatever, just beating them down to get letters that said that this was removed or that didn't happen or whatever. I mean, the things that you would do to get these loans done was, it taught you a lot how to deal with people, that's for sure. I've seen my partners acting like women, and they acting as the customer. It was hilarious, and I'm just 22, 23 watching all this, just, oh my goodness, this is off the hook.
All right, so you and this guy started a mortgage lending business.
Mortgage loan investments.
Okay, so what was the purpose of this business?
It lend money.
Lend money?
Yeah.
Primarily but as a hard money lender?
No, with home lending.
Okay.
Yeah, we would.
So that was a little bit more regulated.
Yeah, RDs. No, not really.
That wasn't as regulated either.
Only Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and VA were really regulated at that time. Okay, that was the only thing, because they were all federally secured loans. So anything that has to do with the federal government, you have regulations.
More. Okay.
Once you drop down, these were bank regulated. Okay, so the bank would have their own programs, and they're just lending on whatever. I mean, you've probably seen The Big Short.
Yeah.
They were stacking these notes, stacking these deeds of trust, and they were just putting them in, and then they were reselling them to the highest bidder on the secondary market.
Right.
And they cared, but they didn't care. They were all just aggregating them out. Boom, 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 boom. File. How many deals can we get? How many deals can we get? They were hungry. So they come in and, we can do this.
Well, don't they realize at some point, not necessarily that whole thing, but like if you're giving out bad loans to people who aren't going to pay it back, doesn't that like thought occur to them? Be like, a lot of these are.
Obviously, it didn't because look what happened.
I'm not talking about the 2008 scenario. I'm just talking about, so you start this business, right? Why wouldn't you want to make sure that the loans you're giving out are actually going to get paid?
You didn't service them.
Oh, so
you're not servicing any of the loans. So all these loans, you're selling another person's product.
So you don't actually have the money.
No, we don't have the money. We're just selling the service of the being provided. So you have like Bank of Belinda, you have Long Beach Bank, you have Alliance, you have Option One, you have 50, 60 lenders out there. They're all coming in every day. Hey, what do you got? What do you got? What do you got?
So it's not your money, so you don't really care.
I don't really care.
So that's where the incentives aren't in line.
The only people that cared were people like Bank of America or Wells Fargo or Key Bank or, Boeing Credit Union. These people that are servicing their loans, and even they're only servicing probably 20 or 30%. The rest are reselling. I forget who there was a couple of really big ones out there. So there was like a couple really big servicing companies. And in the end, all the loans reverted back to them. And so they're the ones that really got held with it. And I don't even think they're around anymore because I can't even remember their names.
Because it's like, if I loan you money, it's my money. I want to make sure I get the money back.
Right.
But if you don't own the money.
But if I got a pool of money over here, I'm like, hey, Josiah, go out and loan this money to 10 people so I can collect some payments on it. And you're like, sure. Hey, man, you want some money? You want some money? And I'll give you a fee to do that.
Right.
And you're like, sure. Yeah, we're vetting them, but you're really not vetting.
Right.
Okay. Make sure they have a certain FICO score, make sure they don't have this many delinquent payments, and make sure that the ratios are within this amount. Okay. Matter of fact, we don't even care about the ratios. As long as the loan to value is under 70%, we don't care what they make, just as long as their credit's good. All right, just go ahead and lend that money out.
Is it a lot more regulated now?
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay.
You got to have licensing, you got to have bonding, you got to have.
All right, so.
I mean, all you needed was, when we did it, was a surety bond and a license. That was it.
So when you got into the business, did you have somewhat of an idea it was a little sketch or no? Initially,
I didn't think it was sketch at all. I had no idea. I got in full-heartedly to learn how to sell money.
All right, so let's talk about that. You dropped out of college. Why?
To sell money.
So you dropped out of college because you got bored.
You got bored, but really because the opportunity came to open up a business and go into doing.
Because you're like,
real estate. Because I always liked real estate. I always wanted to be involved in real estate, and finance was something I had an interest in. So, because I felt it was a lot like selling drugs. Right? There's not much difference between selling money and selling drugs.
Yeah,
there really is not. And so you have a product that people truly desire. It pretty much sells itself.
Correct.
Coming to you for it, and they're doing it, however, before they even get it. And so they're already attached to it, and they want, so they'll do anything they can to get it.
Right.
It was a no-brainer.
Okay, so you're still selling drugs and partaking of drugs?
Oh yeah.
And then you're doing the mortgage lending. All right, so where does it go from there?
Well, then I got too much money.
Sure. So what did you make those first couple of years? Like over 100,000
around
personally?
Around that.
So a young 22, 23-year-old making $100,000.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It was a lot. I don't know if I was quite making that much at that time, but by the time 95 was, yes. But at that time, 50, 60 grand. It was good money back then.
Yeah.
Enough to go buy a house.
More than what your peers were doing.
Yeah.
Who were still in college.
My parents were all coming over to get advice and stuff of that nature and buy some pot. It's kind of like Easy-E, here I am doing this, but I'm still running home to sell some nickel bags,
Yeah.
It's that nature. But in this time, I met a distributor out of the local guy here that was running large amounts out of Canada.
Amounts of what?
Marijuana.
Okay.
This was back in...
It was just marijuana at this point. It's not other drugs?
Yeah, at this point, it was just marijuana. And so we had a couple houses that we had set up. So during that time, we had bought some houses and set them up as grow houses.
Did you know it was illegal? Did you think it was wrong?
I think it was wrong.
Yeah.
I think it was wrong. Did I know it was illegal? Of course I know it was illegal. Of course I knew it was. I did it anyways. I didn't care.
Right. That's what I'm trying to get at is you knew it's illegal, but for you morally, it didn't
bother me one bit.
You didn't lose any sleep over it.
Not a drop.
Okay.
Not a drop. Openly and hostily. They didn't care. Because, face it, the time for pot, you had to have a lot of pot. You had to have a lot of pot to go and get in trouble. And you had to be doing a lot of it. And they just weren't, it just really didn't care. Unless you hit the federal level of it, they really didn't care. Not here in Washington. Yeah. If you were in Texas, or if you were in, Wyoming or some other state where they're super conservative, yeah, I probably would have had a little bit more, we'd probably have a little bit more reservation about it. But here, Oregon, California, I'm like, yeah, whatever. It's just pot. They didn't care.
So you would know how to set up houses so they could be grow houses.
Yeah.
That take a lot of electricity.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so isn't everything done through cash? So you're buying homes through, like, walk me through how you.
No, we'd buy
set
through
up
an
the house.
investor. So we'd get somebody to come in and they'd invest it. We'd put a rental.
Did that investor know what the house was being used for?
But we put a rental agreement together so that it was separated. And then we'd separate it again. We'd run different names, fake names, with that. And then we'd set up all the accounts and fake names. So everything was a shell.
It looked by the book.
Looked by the book, but it was all a shell.
Okay.
Come in, set up the ventilation, set up the lights, have somebody come in, tap the electricity.
But the utility, when you say tap, what does that mean?
It's to go in and tap the box so the electricity wouldn't run the way it was supposed to.
So you could jerry rig it so that it was using a lot of power.
But it still wouldn't bill you for it.
So the utility, because if it was in the utility company you hate,
it would have a record of it. So yes, no, we would tap the electricity. So we never got caught.
if you think utility companies would figure that out,
They have.
Yeah,
They have in time.
they're a lot smarter now.
Well, not
Back
then. No,
They didn't have
all new technologies and things.
They didn't have the algo.
A good electrician can come in and fix your system. Like I said, like we had resources.
All right, so you're doing this in your 20s, making good money.
Yeah, and so I mean that money there was great. So we had these houses that were generating, like 60 to 100 grand a quarter.
And how do you keep records? Is it all paper?
Keep records.
So no record.
Keep records. I would just here's what you have this amount here for these people. You have this amount. You take what's left over, but we got to make this so that everything gets paid.
Who's like in charge of these operations? You?
No, I wasn't. Sorry,
you're one of the middleman.
I had a couple of partners, and the one actually has about 10 weed stores in Oregon right now.
So he's still in the business.
He's still in the business. Still in the business today. The other one had one he sold out a couple of years ago. I was the fuck up.
We'll get into that. So this is your 20s. You're enjoying life.
Oh yeah. Back then, so I mean, like I was saying, Seattle at that time was off the hook. My roommate was in the hot local band. We were throwing huge.
Are you living in Seattle?
Yeah, we're living in Seattle, living right in Bellevue, actually. Living in Bellevue, I had this farmhouse. We used to do these big functions there all the time, going out every night. Hanging out with Alice in Chains. My buddy was sound recording for Soundgarden.
Nirvana's a thing back then?
Nirvana was a thing. We didn't really know Nirvana, but we knew everybody else, we knew everybody else. They hung out with a lot of people. I mean, I hung out with a lot of different up and coming area. I mean, if I went through the laundry list of the bands that I had been associating with and hanging out with, dealing with, when they come through, it was impressive. Seattle was a different city back then, and it was a rock and roll city. So we were having a lot of fun. Having a lot of fun up until about my late 20s.
So what changed?
The drugs changed.
Okay.
The drugs changed, and instead of going to Canada, we were now going to Mexico and picking up dope from down there. Well, this was a little before that. But I met this kid. Here the tables turned. Instead of being the youngest, I became an older, and I met this kid who was messing with the Mexican cartels, and he had these connections, and he was getting cocaine for $2.50 an ounce, which is, I mean, to give you an idea, that same ounce is around $1,500 to $2,000 a day. We can get it so cheap, so cheap. It changed my whole business structure.
So were you smuggling drugs into Canada?
No.
Or is it pretty easy?
We were having them come out of Canada.
Okay, they're coming out of Canada.
Yeah.
Are they crossing the border? How are they getting the drugs across?
In trucks.
And they just like hide them in different compartments, or they're not really checked?
I don't know. The guy I worked with, he was big. He bought a bunch of places up there, and so he did the same thing we were doing down here, but he was doing it up there on a grand scale in like warehouses. Canada had even less. They had even less regulations than we did. It's pretty much legal up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they had border guards and stuff on the payroll and things. And
okay, that is a full-gone operation up there.
Yeah, it was just football. Excuse me for just a second. I think I got to update my... Nope, not yet. All right. Yeah, so it was a completely different operation. The reason he liked us is that our pot was way better. It was superior. It was right from the University of Washington. We got these super clone,
The University of Washington.
They have a horticulture department. They had a horticulture. I don't know if they still do, but they did a lot of experiments with pot. It was well known, but they never would admit to it. But they were like, "Oh, this is."
The students or professors growing.
We'd get it. They made like here's a UW strain when they were doing all these cross pollinizations, and one of the pollinizations that they got was this one that had no smell, and it had a THC content that was rivaled anything out there today. it was so much
coming from
you could shake it and pull just the pollen and make hash right in your hands. It was unbelievable, but you couldn't smell it. But it had a smell from a distance, but you couldn't smell it up close.
Yeah,
it was just, everybody wanted that.
That's funny.
Everybody wanted that. Like, oh my goodness, where can we get that? Oh, we got it. So
would you say marijuana is a gateway drug to other things, or would you say no? How do you get to the hard stuff? You generally don't go straight to the hard stuff, right?
Well, I went to the hard stuff from drinking.
Wait, when did you go to the hard stuff as a young person, or wasn't until you're late?
I wasn't until I was much older. I went to hard stuff so that I could party longer in the bars.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I don't know if you've ever smoked pot before, but it's not a very uppity. You're not smoking pot and saying, let's go out and party. But if you drink, usually when you drink, you feel a little bit more charged. You get that little liquid courage to a degree. People start, they hit that line when they cross over, they start becoming exaggerated. But if you go too far, then that's when everybody starts puking, they're falling down, they're passing out, they're not having any fun anymore. Well, stimulants corrected that.
Okay.
So if you're in the bar, you're starting to feel down, whatever you do a little stimulant, boom, you're back up, you're ready to go for the next round. And so that's really, so if I were to say the gateway, no, I don't think pot was a gateway. I think it was the alcohol and trying to maintain into the night, when you're out there, running in that party scene, sometimes it goes past 2:00.
Looking back on your life now, do you feel like you were trying to fill the void for something, or were you just chasing fun and pleasure?
Both. Well, I think that, sure, there was some medicating later, but I think in the beginning, I think that, two things. I think that if I would have realized that if I would sort of cut the pot out in general, my focus and things would have been way better, because that was an everyday thing. I didn't drink on a regular basis. I never have. I never will. I didn't drink every day. You'd never catch me coming home and cracking a beer and sitting down and watching TV. It just wasn't me. But you would catch me coming home, taking a couple of hits, and then go out and do something else, or go out and basically go run some errands and things of that nature. And if things felt overwhelmed or whatever, that would be my knockout. And, everybody was like that. I mean, the 80s and 90s, everybody smoked pot. I mean, they smoked pot like they smoked.
Well, everybody in your world, because I don't think everybody in society did. It's just when everybody does that, you don't realize.
This is what kind of alerted me to this. So when I was in high school, and this is what was weird, is you're right. I thought there was the stigma of just these kids over here. But then when I changed and I came in, I found all these kids from the upper class and all that. They were all inside smoking pot and stuff at the same time. I couldn't believe my eyes. I was like, "Oh, really? You guys all do this too? Huh?" And they still do. I mean, there's so many people that I know that are even older. They're still doing it at a professional level. Well, I wouldn't say everybody, no, but there's still a lot. Drugs are an interesting thing. A lot more people do drugs than what you think.
Yeah.
They do. And
I mean, I like, me personally, I like to understand why do people do this stuff. It's like my buddy yesterday, 2 days ago, he texted me and he's like, what motivation, or how do you motivate yourself to go to the gym or work out or exercise? And I thought about it, and it's like, dude, I need zero motivation because I'm just going to do it.
Right.
I don't have to be like, okay, decide today. Like, is there a day where I may not want to go? Maybe. But as a lifestyle,
there will be.
I will go do, I've been doing it for 30 years now.
Yeah.
Exercise is a part of my life. So now it's like, all right, these people who are into, I've been fortunate enough where those vices haven't been a thing for me.
Right.
Drugs and alcohol. But I do understand a lot of people have deal with that. So I want to understand those people better.
I can tell you this. In my world today, my worst day is still better than my best day on dope. Okay. So that's just me. In the end, my worst day today is still better than my best days over there. You know, there's some good days, but I just feel so much better. If I would have known that I would feel this good, I would have never. But I just didn't really know what the difference.
So this is a little side trail, and we'll get back to your story. But lately, I've been having conversations with both old and young people about helping people, right? Just the concept of helping. And it seems like it should be a really simple concept. But so the dilemma we were discussing was, don't, especially when dealing with young people. When I say young, let's say 18 to 30, because they still have hope in their life. Right. You can still change the trajectory. It's not too late when you get older, and I think we'll talk about that in your story. But for me specifically, 18 to 30, it's like at that time, you generally aren't going to ask for help.
No, you're not going to ask for help at all, because asking for help is a sign of weakness.
Right. Or I was talking to someone else. For some people, A, it's ego, but also B, you don't know what you don't know.
True.
So how are you supposed to ask for help when you don't know what to ask? And so I think there should be people, not everyone has this desire or calling, but there are people who don't, like, if you just randomly give advice to people, they're generally not going to receive it nor want to hear it.
True.
So then it's like, okay, how do we still help those people? Because you just said, if someone would have told me that blah, 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 then maybe I wouldn't have gotten that.
I say that kind of in a facetious way. Not in a facetious way, but in a way of hindsight. People did tell me this, all right? I mean, don't.
So you had people in your life, even
they were like, well, they're like, hey, look, you know, if you put the same energy into doing this X, Y, Z over
what did your parents think about your lifestyle in your 20s?
They didn't really know.
They knew you had a job.
I had a business. I was running. I had 2 houses. I was doing things, and you know, I was showing up for family dinners. Now they knew that I was washed out. They knew that I was doing it, and in the end, they knew, and they didn't know what to do, because by the end, there were some crashes and some surgeries and some things that happened that
we'll get to that. Yeah,
they about killed me. And
but let's go back to that topic of helping young people. And so the realization I came to, actually this morning, I was talking to an old guy, and he was like, so he's 675, and we're talking about that, and he's like, all you can really do is try to open the door for them.
Yes.
If they then want to know more, then you can be like, hey, let's discuss it. But if you just randomly throw all this advice out there and it just hits the wall, most likely it's not going to do anything.
Most people in the midst of an addiction or a trauma or something of that nature that are fixated on something, they don't want to hear it. Right? They will give you every excuse why that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Okay. They will tell you that there's not an issue that they got under control. Meanwhile, they're just spiraling.
Right.
Spiraling.
Did you feel it at the time that you're like, but at the time, because again, I'm trying to
Later.
understand people at that time. How do we
Later than later? Yes. Okay. So one thing about me, I was always pretty honest with myself about it. Like I said, I knew it was a crime. I did it anyways. Didn't care. I always living the TV or the Hollywood antagonist lifestyle.
and you're making good money in your late,
Yeah, we were having fun. Yeah, that was
well over 6 figures at that time?
yeah, definitely well over 6 figures at that time. So like I said, we were doing things, and
So it's all cash related?
it's all cash related. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you depositing this money to the bank,
Sometimes.
or you just had cash,
Well-
ton of cash?
Well, I mean, you have to be careful. I mean, you can only deposit so much.
Right.
I mean, so you would find ways to get people to write you checks and things of that nature so you could deposit. Plus, we had a company, so I could run it through the company and
You can money launder through the company.
the same thing. I mean, whatever you need to do, you have expenses, things of that nature, you can go pay for the expenses.
If you have a problem, you figure out a way to solve it.
Yeah, that was a pretty good problem solver. I still am.
So let's go back to, we went on a little sidetrack on helping people. Maybe we'll get more in depth to it. But the aha moment I had today was when I talk to people, I'm not necessarily trying to give them advice. What I'm trying to do is open up the door so they have a different perspective on
Exactly.
that situation.
Perspective.
Because I was talking to someone the other day, and then after the conversation, I talked to them the following day to rehash the conversation I just had with them. And they're like, it was funny because she's like, it didn't feel like advice. Because I was like, because I'm not trying to give you advice.
Exactly.
What I'm trying to do is show you a different perspective on
There's no doubt about it.
that life. So to me, that's not advice. Some people may see that as advice, but if you
I have a very similar tactic in that.
if you can relay information to someone without telling them what to do,
And I'm very good at that.
then that's powerful. So let's go back to late 20s. What's your feelings, your thoughts? You get introduced to,
We get introduced. So like I said, I meet this kid. He's, God, let's see, I'm 28. He's like 19, 20. He's like 10 years younger than
was he Hispanic,
No, white kid.
white kid?
White kid. Big white kid. He's little, and I met him. He grew up to be big. And the kid was very, he was very hardcore in the paint. But he was hooked up with these cartels, and they were sending him ridiculous amounts of product.
How were they getting that across?
I don't know.
You know,
I just know it would show up. He would come out and be like, oh. So we'd go to work. We'd start mixing it up, cutting it up, getting it ready, and then we'd distribute it out. And that was,
is it fairly, again, I have no experience in this world. Is it fairly toxic to work with?
no,
Okay.
there's, it's all in bag. You're just taking it from one bag to another or scooping it out. And no toxicity. I mean, we put more toxicity into our bodies by doing it than we ever did by touching it.
Hmm.
But then we just go to work, and we're going out a lot.
So you personally would sell it, or would you hire other people? Would you find other guys sell it for you?
Well, we mainly always finding distributors, so we'd find distributors who were just,
So who's at the top of this ladder?
well, the people that were giving it to us.
So they're at the top, and then who's below
The
them?
kid.
You and the kid. So you're the guy who's getting the
Yeah.
product.
The kid liked me because like you said, I was able
You already had experience.
I was able to give the advice. Plus,
You were his mentor.
I didn't look like a dope dealer.
Yeah.
I was saying I'm not all tattooed. I don't have any tattoos.
You still don't?
I know.
Why didn't you ever? Is that just not something you were ever?
Just because real criminals don't have tattoos.
The good ones.
Well, because they're identifying marks.
Yeah.
Piercings know nothing. All right, because I want to blend in. I want to be able to maneuver without being recognized or without having to draw attention to myself. I don't want people to be like, oh, it was that guy that had the face tattoo.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's only 4 or 5 of you out there. You're going to get caught. All right. So, yeah, no tattoos, no piercings, none of that. No flashy cars, nothing that, oh, he's the guy driving the Bugatti over there. We don't want to be that guy. Conservative, truly being conservative. Have a place, do your stuff undercover, under the guise of professionality. So yes, I taught them all that and the work, but in the end, it always comes down to somebody takes you out.
Well, let's get to that in a moment. You're getting into is it cocaine?
Cocaine and amphetamines.
Okay.
Oh, and stimulant product, basically.
Okay. And so you're getting it from, did you ever have direct communication with the guys, or was it all through?
It was all through him.
It was all through him. So you wanted to keep a layer.
He'd been doing it since he was like early teens. I don't know. He just got into this lifestyle super young. Yeah. He's kind of a sad story.
Is he still alive?
Oh, yeah, he's still alive. Had a lot of time.
We'll get to that.
But, yeah, unfortunately, he was just, dude had, he had the flashy car, he had the tattoos, I'm just like, dude, check this out, man. You're running like this, and it's bad for business. It's bad for business. You don't got a license. You're just out there. You're going to get ended up, and that's what ended up happening. You just get ended up. And eventually started having people, driving and things for him, and it was, we got him right for a while, but
I mean, once you have a taste for something, it's hard.
Yeah. So he went down first, and they tried to investigate me. I beat that.
Well, so how long did that relationship last for? You started in your late 20s.
3 years.
So 2-3 years, you're getting drugs, and you're making a lot more money, so you're dealing with a lot more cash.
Doing a lot more cash, doing a lot more money.
But then that also puts a bigger target on your back, because with marijuana, it's like, all right.
Yeah. So the cards came crashing down when he got arrested. They had raided things, and they couldn't find anything, but it still shut down that operation for a while. And that was, everything got shut down. Went through that money, took some time, and then kind of got back into it. I was still trying to do the finance thing, but I was kind of messed up. It's hard for me to get back into it after being in this world for so long. And I kind of like, I should have, That was the point. I should have taken the advice and gone and checked in somewhere and got cleaned up.
So this is your early 30s?
Yeah, late 20s, early 30s.
Did you have girlfriends during this time?
Yes. Yeah, my parents knew at this time. All my parents were involved, and they knew, and they were like, hey. Yeah, and I ended up in the hospital. I had a intestinal surgery and things. Well, killed me.
From the drugs?
From the drugs, from the drugs things. So all of this pretty much wiped me out for a couple of years. And so I was living in depression and just next to zero at that point in time. Just like, all the good times, everything gone back. And I just couldn't, I couldn't get myself right into the normal world. Mm-hmm. So I slipped back in. I met a new guy, and he was running down to Mexico and picking up. And I worked for his little partner for a while, and then I made a move and got in, and that's when things took off. And so I had about another 2, almost 3 year run more before everything came crashing.
Doing the same drugs?
Same drugs, just pretty much just methamphetamine at that time.
Is that pills?
No,
what is that?
Powder form.
Okay.
Again, I couldn't get my business plan before was to deal with people that were, I said they were hierarchies of society, people that had professional,
they have nothing to lose if they...
Yeah, they had stuff to lose. They valued that relationship. But the second time, I didn't have that in. Like I said, I was dealing with a much more savory class. Had to be a lot more hard. Had to be a lot more thuggish in that period of time. So I regressed.
Did you ever have close death encounters? Would you ever fear on a deal or something?
Sure. Sure, I always felt like when we went down to California one time and they had people on the rooftops with submachine, yeah,
Who's they? The
the people that had all the product, they were people scoping out from the rooftops and stuff. It just kind of like, yeah, it's just kind of sketch. Picking up suitcases of dope and driving it back up.
Do they portray it well in the movies? How those go down? Just general distrust between each party.
No, they overblow it. It's a lot more calm and relaxed than that. I mean, people are there. Nobody wants to trouble because if something goes up, people start getting shot and things. It's over.
Yeah, it's not fun for anyone.
There's nothing left. All right. So, yes, it happens. I suppose you get that, but
They want the relationship to work just as much as you do.
yeah. Now, that was then. Nowadays, it's a totally different animal, and I would never go back into it today. Now you have everything run from south of the border. They're way too intel. They're way too integrated. They're everywhere, and if you could find yourself in a barrel.
Yeah.
It's very possible. It's way more sophisticated now than it ever has been. And yeah, I even just the thought of it makes me want to.
So, for any young person that's listening to this, if you're thinking about getting into this lifestyle, what is your
It's over.
recommendation?
It's over.
Don't do it.
The dope game's over. It's come and gone. But it's not there anymore.
It's not worth
It may look like it is, but you're gonna find yourself set up shop in a homeless camp in a tent. That's about it, because that's your clientele. Nobody does dope anymore.
Well, I just had a buddy, a good friend of mine. His brother was into drugs, tried to get clean. He ended up working for his brother, went to church. But I've heard once you've gotten into that lifestyle,
It's hard to get out.
it's really hard because your desire for it doesn't necessarily go away. You have to replace it with something else.
You do, Andrew. That's a good point. So I'll give you a little analogy of it. So dope is funny because everything you like to do, like going out with your friends, taking your dog for a walk, having dinner at your parents' house, having dinner with your girlfriend, watching movies, slowly, methodically gets replaced with doing dope. And so all these activities that you were doing before, you're going to find, no, I can't do it tonight. You're going to go do your dope. You're going to go do your dope. You're going to go do your dope. Eventually, that's all you're going to do. Right? There's nothing else because it just monopolizes your time because you've built
So
such a
you're speaking from experience.
experience and watching it happen, unfold.
In your personal life or in other people's life?
Both. I had a friend explain that to me early on, and I always watched it, and he was spot on with it. He's just spot on. He's like getting, he was just as much of a, he was just as bad as I was.
Well, we're going to get into your redemption story, but yeah, I like to try to understand that what people are going through. But so back to my buddy, just a few months ago, so he's working for his brother. He's actually staying at his house. He's been in rehab back and forth, but he seemed to be doing well. He's part of a ministry that helps him with it. And his brother doesn't come home. And he's like, well, okay, it's normal, whatever. And then the next day, he gets a call from this is here in Seattle, from a business owner that's like, oh, yeah, by the way, your brother's passed away in your work car.
Oh, really?
And he's like, what? And at the business owner didn't even know that Vadim, he didn't even know yet. He thought the police and all that stuff had already told him. So he was the first person to tell him.
Wow.
And so then he's like, what is going on? So they end up calling the police because it's the police that officially have to stay. So what happened was the day prior, the dude went out to a call, whatever, because he traveled. And he went and parked at a business owner's parking spot and was there for several hours. So the business owner calls the police and is like, hey, can you come get this guy? So they come over and they see the guy's passed out. So they break the window and then they shake him awake, and he's like, "Oh, I'm fine." So they leave the dude.
Well, to break the window and we'll leave the dude.
Yes. But here's the thing. I don't blame them because that's probably a regular occurrence in Seattle.
It is a regular occurrence.
So when you have something like that happen so often,
You had to break the window.
and it's understaffed, and there's so many, like, how often are they getting those kind of calls?
They just don't care. I mean, it's not that it's not that they just don't care. So their sense of urgency of hey, this is a little bit more troubling has been desensitized because they see it so.
They see it so often.
But in all reality, if you got to break a window on somebody to wake them up, that dude is not okay.
So, so then they leave, and then the dude probably hits up again on whatever. And then the business owner comes back the next day and he's like, "Hey, this car's still here and the guy's still here."
Right.
So he calls the police, and the police come out and they're like, "Oh, he's dead."
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of different ways to look at that. But I do think police care. But again, when it's so prevalent.
Well, I think they care if they can do something about it.
Right. But their hands are tied.
Well, it's not just that. It's that when you have so much and it just keeps on going, you see the same old thing, it starts to grind on you. Like you get desensitized to things.
Right.
Right. And so that's one of the things we can talk about is the desensitization. So as things spiraled, even in my world, I was still, as I was watching people just drop because they
drop, pass away.
well, no, the drop in their cognitive demeanor, their ability to be normal.
Mhm.
So one thing that drugs do to people, the hard drugs they do, is they really wear on the psyche. Okay. And so at a certain point, they have this thing called drug-induced schizophrenia or
Right.
it's psychosis.
It breaks you.
Yeah. And at that point, once you hit that point, so anybody, normal person, they're going on. If they're doing a lot of drugs, okay.
Did you ever get to that point?
Fortunately, not close, but no, I never got to that point. We'll get to that point. We'll get there in a minute. But there comes a point in time where they start seeing people in the trees. They start talking to themselves. They start going abba dabba dooba dooba dabba dooba dabba dooba, and they're crazy.
I mean, we see it here happen in the streets of Seattle.
Yeah, this is the result of it. But they didn't start out like that. They start out like you and I.
Yeah.
Okay. They started out normal, healthy people. They get a little taste of it. They're like, oh, I like this. I gotta get some more. I gotta get some more. They do some more. And they're just trying to get to this level. They're this breakable level. And I started seeing this on a regular basis. And so once this happens, there's no going back. So every time these people do drugs now, that's exactly where they go. So they'll never be able to just do it and be like, oh, I had a good time. But no, as soon as they do it, they relapse right into this drug-induced psychosis. It's really crazy. And I saw that with my first partner. So he was a cocaine addict before I met him. And we did some cocaine one night, and that dude, he walked around like an Indian around the campfire. And I was just like, oh my God. And I should have learned right then. I mean, if I really would have been paying attention and I would have seen, I would have taken everything, packed it up and thrown it away and gone join the covenant or something like that.
And that's what you think. It's like, what is
crazy.
And for me, it's like, logic isn't a thing anymore.
Yeah. Well, it was in my mind. I'm like, I'm never going to be like that. That is great. I've never seen anything like that. This dude can't do. And I was, ooh. But there it is. Fast forward 20 years, 10 years, 10 years, and I'm seeing it. And the thing that I think probably bothers me a little bit is that I contributed to that in people. And I knew what it was doing, and I was doing it anyways. In the end there, and that kind of took a toll on me. And like I said, there was a point there at the end where I knew it was at the end. I could feel it, and
I think deep down inside, you're also violating your conscience and your soul.
At that point,
when you're causing harm to someone else.
Yeah. That when I started to see the realities, I was harming myself at that point. And that's when I receded in. I didn't really go anywhere. I was just kind of in the point where two things were going to happen. I was either going to pass or I was going to go to jail. It was one or the other.
Did you ever think about suicide?
Yeah, maybe suicide by overdose.
But never deliberate?
No.
You weren't that. Some people, that's where they...
No, probably, no.
They get to.
No, I never thought about it. Never been a quitter. It doesn't matter what it is. I don't quit easy.
Yeah. All right. So now you're early 30s. This is your second stint on drugs.
Second stint.
But you didn't have a full-time job. Your full-time job was to be
The
a
second time, no, I was straight. I was just straight
hustling.
Straight hustling. Yeah.
Well, what kind of money were you making?
Not good enough.
So under 100K.
Yeah, probably. You know,
Where were you living?
living in Kirkland.
So you had a place you stayed?
Yeah, a place I don't know, but I'd rented out and things. So it's a nice little place. Lived there by myself, doing my thing. I mean, like I made, a couple grand a week probably doing it. It wasn't like, was poor or anything.
So the money wasn't even that good
Not
at that point.
At that point in time, no.
You just knew.
Well, I mean, I had a habit.
Money?
Well, look, I had a habit.
Yeah.
I probably had another, it's a couple $1,000 a week habit.
If you wanted to be a drug dealer, don't do the product.
Yeah, if I wouldn't do the product, then I wouldn't have been slow. I would have been moving. I would have been doing things a lot faster. But because you're taking time to go do drugs, you're losing time being aware of what's really going on around you. And so as they crept in, as they had the helicopters in my backyard,
Well, let's
scoping me out, and I'm looking at them like, oh, what are they doing out here? All the telltale signs, like hearing them on the crosstalk and stuff, just, this is kind of weird, I'm gonna do some more dope, and hide out. Yeah, all the signs were completely there, and you're just like, but by that time I quit. I just kind of quit caring.
quit on life.
I just quit caring about doing anything else. So, yeah, at the time it was probably a good thing because it kind of swept in.
All right, so let's talk about how that phase of your life ended.
It ended with a joint, what do they call them?
Task.
FBI and DEA and ATF and the locals.
So they've probably been scoping you out for a while.
Yeah, like I said,
And it's not that you were being that secretive.
I just popped. Somebody knew who I was, had a way to get in, and used me to get out of trouble.
So you got.
I wasn't on the radar. I wasn't blowing up.
So someone else got popped.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, I know bigger fish.
Yeah, they sold me up to be something that a lot more than what I was. He was selling me up like I was before, and at the time I just wasn't that guy.
Okay.
I was
like, you got the wrong guy.
I'm like, we can be like, look, there's nothing. I mean, I'm just surviving over here, Oh no, you hit it. And so they're really mad. They're really mad because I had 3 other investigations that they'd already gone through. They couldn't get me for like 15 years.
With the mortgage stuff? Well, we don't
know with the drug stuff.
Oh, okay. Did you do anything illegal with the mortgage stuff? We didn't really talk about that.
No, I mean define illegal. Did we jockey some paperwork? Sure. Did we do anything that was like truly fraudulent? Like, no.
Okay. See, there was a gray area. Maybe you.
I mean, look, we maybe stated some things that weren't necessarily true, but we didn't really.
Okay. So nothing too scandalous there.
No, it was pretty. So we always had ethics and morals, and we weren't. Yeah, I like that. Excuse me, stick it. Let's see who was I fell back.
Is that your wife?
No, it's Scott. So, yeah, it was interesting.
All right. So the day you got popped, someone ratted you out, and then what was that day like?
What was that day like? That day was just a normal day, not doing anything, knocking the door. Girlfriend freaked out, blah, blah, here, they left. And it's like, somebody came by and said they hit our mailboxes and things of that nature. What do you mean hit our mailboxes? And they walk out later on, a couple hours later. As I'm walking out, swarm in, and that was it. That was it. I wasn't seen again for another 8 years.
All right. So let's talk about that. So they came, got you.
Yeah.
Then what?
Well, they took me down for questioning. Wanted to know about all these different people that I'm like, what do you want to know? There's nothing there. There's nothing. I don't have the answers that you want. And I can tell you,
So they thought you were Mr. Kingpin. And you're just
they just thought there was a lot more there than what was.
okay.
At that point in time, there was just a few of us that were doing it, and I'm like, do what you got to do. I'm good. That was that.
So what did they charge you for?
Running a criminal enterprise and distribution.
What about possession of
The distribution thing.
And then how long did that court process take?
A year.
A year?
Yeah.
And at that time you were in jail?
I was in a federal holding facility.
What is that experience like for the listener?
A federal holding facility.
Is it fun?
Is one step up from a county jail, but you're in there with everybody, all the murderers and all the people that have done real things. There is no segregation. And so if you don't suit up and boot up, you'll probably get carried out. It was bad. I saw a lot of people getting really messed up in that place.
So do you have to join a gang?
No, you don't join a gang, but you're gonna run with your clans.
Which is by race, gender?
By race generally. Okay, because you're outnumbered. Right? You in there, you're gonna be severely outnumbered because
A lot of brown guys in jail.
well, a lot of brown guys, but all Mexican. The Mexicans run the prisons. All right. And up here is you have about close to an equal white and lesser black, because this is just the area.
Yeah.
Go down. So I did a lot of time in Alabama.
Why were you in Alabama? So all this stuff happened here, but they sent you to Alabama because it was a not federal crime.
Federal is different than state. So
Yeah.
they don't have any federal prisons up here in Washington.
Interesting.
Closest one they have is in Oregon. And I was there.
Okay.
It sucked. Rained every day. Food was terrible.
But yeah, let's really go into that because I want people to understand if you live a life of crime.
Well, let's talk about SeaTac first, because SeaTac is interesting.
This is the first place you went to?
SeaTac is interesting. It's the holding facility. So like any crime, whether you be like if you come in for
How old are you at this time? When
35.
35. Did you think your life was over?
My life was over.
Yeah.
At that point in time, yes. It was shut down for.
And what did your parents think once you finally got caught? Were they sad?
Well, they were disappointed. They were sad. They were relieved. They were open-minded.
Did they try to say no, he's innocent? Or they're like, yeah.
There's no anything. No, there was no seriousness.
Well, my little Billy would never do that.
By this point in time, they knew what was going on.
Okay.
All right. There was no secrets. I was a mess. I'd stopped going to family functions. I'd start going to Thanksgiving dinner. I'd stopped going and doing those things because why? Because the drugs.
For a parent whose adult child is going through this, what advice would you give that parent? Would you tell them to try to stay in their life and make it their life?
Don't give up. Don't give up. But you can't fix it.
So the parent
afford it, but I don't think you could fix it.
Parent can't fix it, but would you encourage parents to rat the kids out to be like, hey, police, come get this guy?
If you have the ability, you'll never be forgiven. If you have the ability to, intervention is good. But here's the thing that people don't tell you about drugs. Okay, this is something I learned the hard way, but it's something that I believe full well, and this is why we have the problems that we have today with drugs. Okay, because the approach they take is too little. Okay,
they throw money at it.
Well, no, everybody thinks you can go in for 30 to 90 days and be fixed. It doesn't work that way.
Well, let's talk about how you got fixed later. But
okay. Well, it's kind of all part of the same, because this is when I got fixed. Is after this, going through this SeaTac. So go to SeaTac, take me in, and the process starts, and it's a long, drawn-out process. SeaTac is a building like that right over there. It's just a little mini skyscraper, with a bunch of floors on it that are maybe 4,000 or 5,000 square feet per pod. Hold about
how many people were in here?
130 cells, so maybe 250 people in each one, 260.
And you shared a cell with
one? Yeah, sure. So one person. And
is your bathroom in there as well?
You have a bathroom in there, but no shower.
Okay.
Showers are separate.
It's all open so someone can see you do your business?
No, they have little glass windows on that side. So it's like a bedroom.
Okay. I'm saying the bathroom, the toilets,
Yeah,
it's just there.
it's just there. Yeah, yeah.
No privacy there.
You lose your stage fright real quick. There's no place for it. It's where that drop one, flush one comes from.
All right. So this is the initial jail experience.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What was my initial? But it was,
You had been in jail before that?
oh, God, yeah. I've been in jail since I was 16, 17 years old. Not a long time, but I mean, that's probably the problem is that, the police back then were arresting people like it was no big deal, just fucking their lives up because you have an open bottle or something of that nature. You're out with your friends, just one little mistake, and boom, you got charges.
Oh, yeah.
And those charges stick with you, and so every time you go back, it is like, so, yeah, yeah. And you don't realize as a kid, but I mean, looking back, and now, with all the way the laws have changed, you can probably go back and get all that stuff expunged because it's all legal now, for all the little pot stuff and all that. We'll write it all off. But at the time, it just kept compiling. So when the big stuff hit, yeah, it messed me up pretty good.
All right. So you're in jail. What's that like? It's an experience I never want.
Well,
But
it's not as bad as you think, but there's nothing good about it. Put it that way.
So you wake up, because now you have no purpose in life. Zero.
It was to walk you in, they assign you, you go sit down, and me, I just went right to sleep. And every day you get up, and so
Are you aware of time? I'm assuming, do you have a watch? Is there a clock?
very slow. It's very slow. So you have to find things to occupy your time. And so there's lots, and I mean, card games, board games, volleyball, different athletic stuff that you can do in the open areas. That's about it.
And do the guys try to get along with each other because they realize like there's no
You
benefit?
get along, but you're not always going to get along. And you have like in one of the places I was at, I was in with the actual president of the Hells Angels up here. Okay, and they were up here on a highly publicized case, and they were all in our pod. And then there was all these Mexican cartel guys that were in there too. And then you get somebody that runs interference and causes drama between everybody, and then it all breaks out into a shit show, free for all. People are getting whacked up with pool cues and locks and stuff.
So that stuff
Open, that happens, son. Or you have two guys, they got to go settle it. They go into the cell and bang, 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 and next thing you know, the ACOs are coming. You wake up in the morning, there's a unit, it's just painted red because two guys had a discrepancy in the middle of the night, and it's over. Hell, the second day I was there, I seen dude that was about to get out in 3-4 days, knocked the guard right out, boom, in the dinner line.
Why?
Got too mouthy.
Even though he's getting out in 3 days, he didn't have enough restraint.
It's ticking time bomb in there,
Yeah.
Everybody's got pressures and things. You just don't really know what the other guy's going through. If you can't keep your mouth shut, you're probably going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
So you just want to sit back, shut up, talk to people that you get to know, and even then you can't trust anybody.
Right.
You can't trust anybody. They'll switch out. But
So you started at SeaTac while this is through the court process?
Yeah, from April to December is when I finally got this. I think I left there in January, went down to Oregon, sat in another holding facility for about another 6 months. That one wasn't as bad. It was a lot more strict. So with SeaTac, everything was a free-for-all. So you had people that were doing life and people that were doing just a couple months.
Yeah, I feel like if you're doing life, if you know you're going to be in jail your whole life, what is the purpose of living?
Yeah. Well, these people they're just executioners. They'd do anything. They didn't care. You don't want to be around those guys.
No.
Because they're time bombs.
Yeah.
They're time bombs.
If you know you're never getting out.
Yeah, it's bad.
What incentive do you have to be?
And so by the time that I actually got designated to a penitentiary or a federal facility, I was able to have lowered my points down to almost none. So they sent me down to
Well, let's talk about that. Did you go to a court where the judge is like
Yeah. So yeah, I went to
that
court.
sentence, and what was that feeling like when they're like, "You're gonna"?
Because I had a so
Did you have
I
a
guess
lawyer appointed to you?
no,
Who you hired? So you did hire someone.
I've had my own lawyer since I was a young man. I had my first run in on him. So
How did you afford this guy?
what do you mean I afford that? I was a drug dealer. I had plenty of
When
money.
you had this cash.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my
If you wanted to have that lawyer, you think you would spend more time in jail?
not the last time. I didn't spend any time but time. My lawyer was Tony Savage. You know who the Green River Killer is?
Mm-hmm.
That was his attorney.
Interesting.
Yeah. He was high profile. He did my buddy's dad in a drug charge. He did this. He was in this conspiracy case early on in Seattle, Miami Vice thing. You know, he did. He was the
Keep talking. I want to see how the camera looks.
he was the ringleader, and he got him off. And so my friend was like, you know, if you ever get in trouble, you need to go down and tell this guy and give him this case. Tell him about this case. So when I got in trouble, I went down. He's like, well, how'd you hear about me? I said, oh, he defended my buddy's dad. I don't know, maybe you remember it was the Yuppie coke ring bust.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he just kind of smiled and never charged me full price ever.
That's funny. All right. So you had a lawyer that was helping you through this, but then you finally got the sentence for how long?
10
years.
2 years, yeah.
Well, before that question, so I'm assuming once you're in jail the first time, or once you're in jail, aren't you going through withdrawals with the drugs?
Well, it's not like that. It's not like heroin.
Okay, so that's a different thing.
Yeah, if you're a heroin addict, you're going to go through those movie withdrawals that they show. The withdrawals you go through with this is different. It's just a readjusting. It's a we're going to talk about that because this is what I'm saying about the way that they handle drug addiction is just wrong in the approach and the amount of time that it actually takes to recover.
Mm-hmm.
So for that first year and the next year, I mean, I basically just slept. And here's the thing, though. The whole time that I'm doing this, I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to get back out and rebuild this back up? How am I going to rebuild
the drugs business?
Yeah, how am I going to get back out? How am I going to rebuild this back up? You know, because that's what I'm still thinking this. For 2 years, I'm thinking this. And then one day I woke up, I said, what are you doing, man? Hey, you gotta rebuild this. You gotta do this. This is over. And I was like, wow, this is over. I don't know to do this. And from that point on, that was the start of the rest of my life right there. I mean, I just knew it was over. I had enough time.
So did you hit rock bottom?
So I don't think I hit rock bottom. What happened is that I finally got to a point where I didn't feel like I wanted to do drugs anymore, but it took a long time to get to that point. It took 2 years. And it was at that point that I realized that it really takes 2 years to get through the whole cycle. Like with anything, you got to have some time served to get credit earned.
So here's what's interesting about that particular story, your story, is you didn't even have anyone in your life speaking truth into your life.
No. Oh.
You came to that realization on your own.
Yeah, I came to that realization. But I'm not the only one. Now, here's the thing, all right? So even when I'm in with these other people, they're all thinking the same thing. But eventually, by the time they get to the end, they're like, no, I ain't never going back. I'm not going to go back. They're all committed. And everybody that I know, it's dope. It's another lifetime ago. A lifetime ago.
So that's what's interesting about your story is you didn't have like a counselor. You didn't have someone coming over you and being like, hey, let's talk about all the...
No, they wouldn't let me into the drug program.
What?
So it's too bad of the guy had too many firearms.
But it's interesting that you essentially helped yourself out.
Well, I've always been honest with myself, Josiah, about it. I always knew what I was doing, and I did it anyways.
So you don't always need someone from the outside, too.
No, you just need to talk to yourself and be honest about it, okay? You can't lie to yourself and be like, oh, I'm all this and all that when you're really this over there. Yeah, all right? accept who you are, be who you are.
But once you had the drugs out of your system,
I make your changes. Oh,
you're able to think more clearly.
Once they were out, and so once I realized that everything I was thinking about was ridiculous, and I didn't really know what I was going to do when I got out. I had no idea.
But you knew at the time at least 10 years.
I had 8. I mean, it was.
Yeah, I know you did 8, but
yeah.
So year 2, you come to that realization.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how long were you at the place you stayed the longest? Where was that?
Well, I was at Sheridan for 3.
Why did they move you around?
I asked to be moved. So here I am.
You're like, hey, I'm tired of this resort.
I'm here when this time. It's rain. It's cold.
You're at your 5-star resort.
Yeah, this resort here. All right, we call it resort because it's a camp, but it's small. It's got like a little track. They got a little fishing pond on the other side.
They have all that.
They got this little weights going on over there, but it's small. You only get to play softball for a season and a half. And I'm hearing about all these people talking about Florida and this cool camp down there and these other cool camps down.
They call it camps?
Yeah, they are camps. They're federal camps, and that's what I call them.
Like
Barbara Walters. I told you, Barbara Walters. You know who Barbara Walters is? Okay. About 30 years ago, she did this show, and she exposed the federal penal system for having these camps where people were just going down with like a vacation. So all the white-collar criminals were going down there. They're fishing on the river. They're eating all this food. They got all these amenities. People are just bringing them stuff in, and they're like, yeah. And so it kind of closed them down, but they're still pretty wide open. I mean, you could get whatever you wanted in there.
You're just living
in groundation.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I got to get to one of these. So I changed my release information and said that I was going to release to somebody's, my sister's house who lived in Florida. All right. Put this in and put in for a reassignment. And they gave me a 3-day furlough. Said, hey, here's a bus ticket. Go ahead and travel on down. And
you just traveled by yourself while you're in jail?
Well, I'm in jail, yeah.
And they just hope that you get there?
Well, if you don't get there, you're going to be in trouble.
Right.
They're going to come get you. You're not going to get far. I mean, you're going to look real funny running around in your sweatpants and duffel bag, you know. They're not going to get far. But yes, they're like, go ahead.
But because you hadn't, like, if you were a violent criminal, they probably wouldn't have done this.
If you're a violent criminal, you're not going to be in this point. If you got more than 10 years on your sentence, you're not going to be in this situation, okay? You've got to have a release date inside of 10 years. You have to have next to no points, no escapes, no violent activity.
If you kept your head down, stayed out of trouble.
I'm the guy at the time. I don't have to worry about protecting myself. I'm not getting into gambling debts. I'm not getting into cigarette sales. I'm not getting into things that are going to get you in trouble, right? I'm just going to do my time. I got money on my books. I'm going to buy my little commissary. I'm going to make my little food over here, and I'm going to get to where I need to go.
Were you bored in prison?
To death. To death. Until I got to Alabama.
Okay.
Right? Because once I got to Alabama, so I went to Maxwell Air Force Base. That's what it is down there. So it's just, it's a big place. So it's got like 1,000 people there. It's wide open. You got probably almost a square mile that you can roam around on. Plus, you can get a job out on the base every day.
You can work on the base?
You can go work out on the base.
Do the soldiers know you're...
they love you. They love you, man. They're giving you food.
I guess, but these are certain type of criminals. That's not the hardest.
Yeah, but they love it because we're cheap labor, for them. And we're coming out, helping them out in the PX, or helping them out in the different stores.
So what type of criminals are in this situation?
Well, anybody that's got points. The points. You could be anything. I've seen mayors of cities. The guy from Enron was there. There's a bunch of high-profile guys. I can't remember. There's been
so it's not a necessarily terrible life. How's the food?
Well,
you're getting 3 meals a day, right?
Food was great when I got there. It severely deteriorated as I went on. But,
and you're getting 3 meals a day?
My partner cooked. He was in the kitchen, so we I need to update this here before I make sure they don't come around. So we were pretty good. Let's see here. She's... I can't. Hold on.
Have you been in the Space Needle recently?
Not recently.
I haven't been in there since I was engaged.
This time I was up there, I don't know if my wife and I have been up there, or if it was.
So it sounds like there's prisons and jails out there that aren't terrible, like you see in the movies.
Federal prison is a different breed than state prison. So federal prison, you have to really do something to go to federal prison.
Yeah.
They're not just taking anybody. So you have had to done something to really piss somebody off to get that luxury of experience, those luxury suites. Okay. If you go to state prison, your life's gonna be miserable.
So state's worse than federal.
Way worse.
Interesting.
You're gonna do less time, but it's way worse. They don't have the funding.
So did you ever go to a state prison?
No.
You avoided that.
No, I went straight to the top, baby.
That's interesting. So federal has more money and is able to provide a better experience for inmates.
Yes.
Unless you're a really hardened criminal.
Well, I mean, look, they're all institutionalized now. So I mean, they're all cookie cutters.
Maybe a little different now.
Yeah, they're all cookie cutters. And so everything that gets built is built to a scope and a spec that is.
Do you have people trying to escape? Is that a thing?
People have escaped from them, yeah. I mean, there was
so like when you were there,
there was somebody that
it seems like it'd be relatively simple and easy.
You just walk off.
Just walk off.
Just walk off. In both places I was at, somebody escaped.
But it's not hard.
They were caught relatively quickly.
But it's not hard, you're saying?
No, you just walk
It's not just barbed wires. It's not like in the movies that make it seem like...
Because that's a penitentiary. It's different.
Man.
So, like, if you are in a medium or higher, they're not letting you get out that easy.
But you were low.
You with shotguns, they got...
But you were low.
Yeah, low and minimum.
Low. So minimum's pretty like...
Minimums you can walk.
Scout's honor.
Scout's honor, yeah.
Stay in jail. If you don't...
They like the minimum because the cost to run them is so much less.
Yeah.
You don't have
a ton of security.
I have 300 guards. You got like 20.
Okay. Are they carrying?
No, they don't.
They're not even carrying.
No, they don't carry. Now they have, I'm sure they have an armory.
Yeah.
But they're not running around with guns, no.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Don't do crime still.
Yeah, don't do crime. Look.
If you're really like let's say you're a bum and you're really hopeless in life, that's the situation you want. Everything's taken care of.
Well, if you can do the right crime to get there, because you only get 10 years.
Oh, so that's the thing. It's only 10 years.
You're not going to retire there. You might be able to retire in a low because that's 20. So
if you play your cards right, you can have a pretty good retirement. 3 meals, food, shelter, exercise.
So here's my day. I would get up. I had my little job. I worked for the facilities down there, and I'd handle all the recycling things for them. I didn't really even have to show up. Just go down there, just make a fresh pot of coffee, hang out, bullshit with them for about an hour. All right, off. Go back to the unit, get changed, go out, hit the weight pile for about 2 hours, go eat lunch, maybe go back down and check in. Usually not, because dude really didn't care. At that point in time, we were underneath one of the hierarchies. He was like, do whatever. So go back, take a nap, then get up, be like, it's time for racquetball. We go out, get a couple games out there, play for fish. You can ask me what the fish is.
What's fish?
Fish is the money in the prison.
Okay.
All right. And it's true fish. It's packets of mackerel. Every society has to have a currency.
Yeah.
And in prison, it's stamps or some commissary product, which is relative to $1 or a percentage of $1 that you can exchange for debts owed.
Interesting.
In this case, it was mackerel fish. Mm-hmm. You do good because you can eat it. All the people that were, I guess, this was a place where people built. They had a huge weight pile there, so people were.
Yeah, you need protein.
Lots of protein, but. They would be betting mackerels on football and things, and it was.
Did you get big?
Oh, huge. I
mean, when you're lifting 2 hours a day, you had nothing else going on.
Yeah. So. Yes. So.
I mean, that seems like a pretty chill life.
Yeah, the weight pile there was great. I went to when I left there, I could bench 225 times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like only 10% of people in the world can bench 225. right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's when I got out, people were like, "Who do you play for?" I was yoked up. I mean, I'm a big guy now. I can still put up some weight, but it takes a while to get to that conditioning where you're really able to do it. It costs
Do
me.
you still work out now?
Yeah, I can still rep it.
Yeah, I mean, you make it seem like it wasn't that bad. Just
Oh, it's great.
boredom and
I almost didn't want to leave at one point, you know.
contributing to
I
society.
almost didn't want to leave at a point because I didn't know what I was going to do when I came out. You know, I didn't know what was out there. The scary part for me was the probation, the 5 years of probation that I was going to be on, and having that leash. So it was like, God, do I really want to be on it? Because you hear all these horror stories of people going out and having to come back because of violations and things, and so. Yeah, I think probably the most anxietal part was the release. You know, as much as you want to get out, you're looking forward to it, but it's like, it's just, you know, it's here. It's kind of comfortable. You know, everything's structured, and you take somebody out of structure and you put them back in.
Well, let's talk about towards your end. Did you think you wanted to get back into drugs or take?
No.
But your desire for drugs is gone.
No. Like if I even think about it, I want to throw up. It's really weird.
So now, like,
Yeah, it's really
now
weird.
you see someone doing it. If you pass by
It
it,
doesn't bother me.
you have no desire for it.
No, but when I see it, and
Different drugs have different effects. So you're saying heroin's different.
yeah, I've never done heroin.
Yeah.
I've never done it, so I don't know anything about it. But when I see people doing drugs on the street, and I think about the drug use I do, it makes me nauseous and it makes me have an attack.
So you have zero desire for it.
Yeah, and really, truly, it makes me want to throw up every time. I just be like, oh, and I start to get sick. And so, yeah, it hasn't ever been an issue.
So how old were you when you got out?
43.
So 43. You got out. Let's talk about that transition out.
Halfway house here in Seattle, right up on Capitol Hill. Like going to another prison, only you get some freedom. You get to go out during the day and look for a job and things of that nature.
Why'd they send you back here? Because you had family here?
Yeah, well, this is where I was going to get released anyways. I just jockeyed that stuff up to get to the sunshine.
Yeah.
I was not planning to live in Florida down there. I don't know anybody down there. I used the buddy that was in prison with me. He's like, here's my parents holding drugs. Use that. You can go down there. And I was like, oh, perfect. Boom. And so, yeah.
Fun kind of went away.
I released up to here. Got in.
Let me put my jacket on.
All right. Got in.
Yeah, what's the halfway?
It's just another jail. Just jail.
Is there someone that's living there that's in charge of you guys? Or...
They're not living. They come in shifts.
So no one's there living?
No, it's like a apartment building.
Mm-hmm.
So you got a couple people in an apartment and 3 or 4 people in each apartment. There's only probably 40 people in them.
Mm-hmm.
It's not very big. You check in, check.
So how does someone, if you have a record, how do you get a job?
Well, so the interesting thing. You would think it'd be an issue, right? It wasn't an issue at all. So I went and took a class. When I got out, I went and registered with King County has this thing for, they had this course to, I don't know, how do they say it? To come back in, to get back in. There's a word I can't remember. I'm missing the word right now. Anyways, I took this and I met this lady there and I took her class too. And she was great. She was all about interviewing and how to sell yourself and how to use all the things that you did in prison to your advantage and put this on your resume and own that. Just own it, be proud of it, and don't let it deter you because she said 90% of it is if people know that you own it and you put it up there, they got nothing to hold against you. All right. Mm-hmm. It may not fit in their criteria, but they can't come back and say, hey, you didn't tell us this or you didn't do that. So just own it. Like, I can do that. So she did all this practice. We did all these like interviewing things and all that. And I asked her after the end, she's like, hey, I'm doing a book. I want you to come here. I want to use your story and put it in this book for that because I think you did a great job in my class. I was like, yeah, go ahead. And so that was kind of cool. So and then she'd have me come back and talk to the following classes. She's like, hey, can you come in and tell them what you did and how you did a story and all that? And I was like, sure, I'll come in and do that. So that was kind of fun.
Do you still have any desire to work with people like that?
I would do it, yes. Yeah. Do I have a desire? I don't have time, but yes, I would do it if I
maybe when you're older and
I have
your
a lot of
career is over.
I think that people are very dishonest with themselves. I think that's the biggest problem in life is that people lie to themselves and they don't realize that it's easier to lie to yourself than it is to lie to somebody else. Nobody else is believing your bullshit. It's just you. It's just you. You're telling yourself all this stuff. You're going out there and you're thinking it's true and it's not.
Mm.
That's what I find. And so once they realize that you have to have self-honesty, and once you accept that, I think people go a lot farther in life. I think it becomes easier. I think that.
So she was kind of like your first personal development person.
Yeah.
And then did you take it more serious, like developing yourself after that?
Not just follow what she did. I did. I went out. So I did. I got out. I decompressed. I wanted to go drive. So I went and got a commercial driver's license, and I've drove for a few years because I was by myself.
Statewide, nationwide?
Statewide. I don't want to drive nationwide.
Yeah. They became a driver, so it's 8 to 10 hours a day.
Yeah, I didn't want to be around anybody.
Yeah.
I'd be by myself. You know, like then I was bored. And that's when we
Did you miss making that kind of money though? But you needed to make money.
I make as much money now as I can. So it's not, no, I don't miss it. I don't miss it at all. The one thing I miss, Josiah, the one thing I truly miss, all right, I miss my early 20s, okay? I miss the limousines and the stripper poles. I miss going out to the clubs, and having everybody know that. I miss being that guy that walked in, everybody was happy to see me because they knew that I was going to make that night a special night.
Yeah.
That's what I enjoyed, all right? They knew that when I came in, that it was going to be, things were going to get crazy, and that was fun.
Yeah.
I don't miss any of the other stuff.
Yeah, usually to get that pleasure, there's a lot of other.
Yeah, that was a very short period of time. So there's only a few years that was like that.
Yeah.
But they were glorious, they were glorious years. And fortunately for me, that's what most people remember about me is those times. And so, I have a lot of friends out there. I know a lot of people, like some of my clients. I had one that died when she died. Bill Gates was at her funeral. Okay. I have known people that have been really up high. So I had a lot of fun dealing with people. And it was never really an issue to go out and just have fun,
Yeah.
It's good times.
All right. So halfway house, you did get a job. What was that first? Oh, you became a truck driver.
Yeah, I got a job. I went and worked for the Goodwill for a year or two, and then worked for Hard Time Glass, which is a big window manufacturer. I did great there. They love me. I'm still on their employee list because they say they're going to call me to come help them out, but I'll never go back.
Yeah, you haven't driven a truck like that probably in a while now.
Nah.
So it sounds like you were able to assimilate back into society.
Yeah, pretty easily.
You didn't. What's interesting about your story. You didn't have a religious moment.
No.
You didn't have some person speaking into your life.
So
because a lot of the turnarounds is usually I hit rock bottom, and you didn't really seem to have that.
Check this out, Josiah. Funny that you should say that, but I'm usually the speaking guy that comes into somebody's life and turns their life around.
Right. Usually someone needs like we talked about at the beginning of the conversation.
I'm the guy that called me back and said, "Hey,
catalyst.
Man, you look so correct. Thank you for helping me out with that. I can't even tell you." And I was doing that through that whole time too. Like I said, I was very honest with myself, and that's why I don't think that I needed all that aha moments. In the end, it was just accepting the fact that I lied to myself, and that I wasn't going to do that anymore, and make a conscious effort to take this direction. And we're just going to be honest about it, and just don't lie to yourself again. Don't lie to yourself again. That's my motto to myself. Don't lie to yourself, because bad things happen when you lie.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I usually when I hear stories like yours, it's usually some external force had to be applied for change to occur. And from you, it seemed to be more a realization and internal.
Yeah.
Than it was some type of external.
Very much.
So I know we both have things to do, but a couple topics. What do we do with the homeless situation now in Seattle, the drug crisis?
Oh, I've thought about that. I have.
How do we truly help these people? Because I think throwing money at it
isn't throwing money in the wrong thing. So look, like I told you,
You can go talk to the mayor. I'm the mayor right now.
the realization I had, that came to be the reality is that it takes 2 years to return to a normal life. Okay, so
2 years of no drugs in your system.
no drugs, sequestered away. So instead of throwing all this money into that, you need to make it. There needs to be a way to sequester people away for at least 12 to 24 months into a program where they cannot
Be exposed.
Yeah, they had.
But I mean,
Basically, you got to lock them up for 2 years.
Yeah.
But in a nice way.
Yeah, but there are. I mean, technically, they're all doing illegal things. So you have the law backs you up to be like, yes.
I would think that you could probably find enough illegal things to do, but the ones that are doing the illegal things are the ones that they actually put away into jail. I mean, so you got people down there in tents selling dope and running enterprises. Then you have all the poor saps that are out there stealing everything in order to buy from.
Because it's hard for people to have sympathy right now.
Oh yeah.
Because it's so prevalent. So I had some of my tenants emailed me, and I could tell she wanted to have sympathy, but it's hard. Because she lives in a community like this, and there's 2 homeless people living in their parking spot, essentially, next to the trash. So she wants to have sympathy, but everyday realization, she's scared to take her trash out.
And as she should be. So, I mean, when I got out and I came home, and the city was under boom. So there was 50 cranes in the city when I got home. And I saw the way things were running. I was thinking to myself,
what year was that when you got out?
It was 14. So
you missed the whole mortgage crisis.
I did. Man, I cry every day for it. I cry every day because I know what I could have done during that time would have been just amazing.
Yeah.
But when I got out and I saw this city under siege the way that it is, and I was thinking to myself, man, if only I were in business right now, it's just a free-for-all. It's a Wild West down here. There's just so, I mean, for criminal organizations, Seattle is like, it's like Chicago in that.
Yeah, it's not
in the prohibition, you know, it's just wide open, and they're just.
Me, you don't have a desire to.
No, but I was just,
there's opportunity.
I was thinking to myself, I was just looking at it going, wow, if I were doing this right now, you could just come up and openly, hostilely, freely, right on the street, just set up, just be backing these people, and I'm like, this is terrible. That's terrible. What am I even thinking?
So what did you say to the mayor? Like, so
the mayor needs to change their philosophy on it and realize that the money they're trying to put in these little tiny houses and all these hundreds of millions of dollars they spent, they need to set up a building, maybe do a double building like that, bite the bullet, it's going to cost the same, and set up an intake, work your way out, a 2-year program, get them in, get them out. I promise you, after 2 years of sleep and recovery and intensely being in a place where they don't have access to it, 90% of them are going to be like.
And then obviously, I think you can maybe speed that up if you have people, counselors, and all that other stuff.
Yeah, well, I think if you have those programs like I did when I got out that help you to reestablish your self-esteem. So I think a lot of people have a low self-esteem and they have a low value in themselves. They don't believe themselves to be worthy to even have a job, let alone know how to even get one.
Again, but they need personal development.
They need a lot of personal development. I thought that course that they had was invaluable. It was probably the best course I ever took.
Do you remember what that course was?
I do not remember what it was, but it was invaluable.
How long was that course?
It was not very long.
Yeah.
So there was 2 of them, and they ran less than 3 months, and it was over and done. So we were going to South Seattle Community College for one, and we were going down to, I think it was like the Work Source building downtown for the other one. And that's where we started. And then she got us into the one over the South Seattle Community College. And like I said, the funding was there just wasn't enough funding for it. So they said they put all this money into funding, but are they really putting it into the right places? Because
right now it's just building tiny homes and then letting them continue to do their
those programs worked. Okay, they worked. And I saw other people, and I'm a little bit of an anomaly because I've always just been just a little bit different than. But I saw people with that low self-esteem and that self-hatred, that I don't know, maybe not self-hate, but just a lack of self-worth, come out of their cells and be able to present themselves and feel confident and comfortable to go out and interview and get a job at things. And I thought that was great. I really thought that was that. They would even help you with financing for programs. Like they helped us get into the truck driving school. They help people get into the restaurant, get their food service card. They'd help them with all sorts of vouchers to get into places. I thought that was really money really well spent. Really did.
So for the listener, especially if you're in this area or California, it's hard to have sympathy, but those people can turn their life around if given the right opportunity.
I think anybody can turn their life around if they're honest with themselves.
Yeah.
The opportunity aside, you've got to be honest with yourself because, face it, if you're still lying to yourself, you're not going to make it. It's not. It's too easy to justify your actions. So, number one, be honest with yourself. Number two, take advantage of anything that might help you to succeed or to get the tools to succeed. And then number three, just pick a target and go after it. In the story, you'll make it. We get close.
Yeah. Well, that's a powerful story.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I'm excited to see what your future looks like. But that gave, I think we talked about some really interesting things, and it does give me hope for the city of Seattle.
Yeah.
But it's also like the people in that situation, they do need help. But as a casual individual, it's like we feel like nothing is happening. And
it's hard for me to open up my wallet.
Right.
Okay. And give it to somebody when I know what it's like to start right there.
Yeah.
And I know what it's like to work from that point and get to where I am right now.
Were you ever homeless?
No, I've never been homeless. I will never be homeless. There's been some transition, but no.
Well, they're all in transition.
Yeah, well, I mean, there were some times where I was, but.
So now do you have a good relationship with your parents?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, my parents have forgiven me, which is nice.
Yeah.
They should, because you should always forgive your kids.
So, yeah, as a parent who's listening to this who may have an adult child, what would your advice to them be? Love them through it?
Always, you're going to have to love them through it. But again, express the importance of being honest to themselves. Call them out for lying, because let them know they're not lying to you, they're lying to themselves. People don't hear that enough. Everybody thinks that they're fooling you. They're not fooling you. You know.
No.
You know, and you're like, hey, and they're like, stop lying to yourself, because once people realize they're lying to themselves, they can make a change. It's just it.